Hello, everybody. It's Friday. That means it's time for another topic of the week. Well, maybe it's not exactly Friday. I may have been flying back basically over Friday and spent all of Friday at Warhammer World. So, didn't exactly have time to record this yesterday, couldn't pre record it, so there we go. I apologize, this is a day late. Here we are. But, it's topic of the week time. So, first off, normal preamble responses to last week's topic on what is fantasy. Wow. People blew me away. So much good thought, so many good responses. It was fantastic. That was a lot of good discussion. A lot of people approach this in many different ways. And of course, some part of this is always going to devolve into a semantics argument, right? But that's not really interesting. But what I really loved is in the comments and the response videos how deeply a lot of people thought about this, examined the nature of the genre that we all love, how it relates to other genres, and how it can be, what are useful borders to draw and what aren't, and how porous are those borders. So it was a lot of really, really good thought. So I would recommend go back there, check that out, check out all the responses. As usual, last week's video will be linked down below. And I want to do some more topics like that in the future of sort of exploring, those adjacency things like the larger themes and scope of the game we play. But let's turn to this week's topic. So, and I will openly admit this week's topic is going to be slightly self-indulgent. I'm sorry, but here we are. So, this week's topic. Well, is related to what I did this week. So I feel that to accurately sort of sum up my week, because I've been on the road all week, and I'm back home for like a day before I leave again to be gone all of next week. And I spent some time in the UK in different places, traveling and doing business related stuff, but I had a day off. And so I went to Warhammer World on Friday. Special shout out to Remington Steele and to Steve Wren, both of whom were totally awesome. Came and brought armies for me to play with. So I got 2 good games in while I was there. I did take pictures. I will do battle reports. So there we go. There's that out of the way. But it was obviously the first time I had been to Warhammer World. And I have to say that there is, whatever you want to say, nothing else I have been to that is like it. It is a singular thing in the world, in my experience. The closest thing I could compare it to is when I go to gaming conventions here in the States, where you're surrounded by a bunch of people who are all sort of geeking out about the same thing you are, and who have this shared passion amongst an edifice that is built solely to service that interest. And it's a fascinating combination of those two things. When you're at a gaming convention and, the convention itself is set up as to sort of obviously facilitate gaming, right? That's what it's there for, of all types. And Warhammer World is a permanent version of that, right? Between obviously the museum that's there and all the different armies and history of Warhammer and that kind of stuff, but also just the massive tables everywhere, and most importantly, and this is the thing that everybody can look at the tables and you can get the idea of it. You can look at the store and go, that's neat that I could buy everything. You can look at the museum and watch photo slideshows and stuff at the museum and go, that's cool. And all that is cool. Okay? But there's this secondary element to Warhammer World that I certainly felt as an outsider on my first time there. And I would be curious as to responses to this, as to what other people think about this. But it's the atmosphere there. It is such a unique atmosphere because because so many people are there, there's so many games going on, because you're like, there's so many people there who you probably know. Rob and was there calling a game. They were playing 40K. Got to talk to him some. Thank you, Rob, for spending some time hanging out with Rem and I. It was super fun to catch up. Spent some time talking to Ben Johnson, and Ben was awesome, and just had a great conversation about, what's going on with the game, and, fun releases and current armies, and just, exactly that. Those kinds of conversations. You don't have those in your normal life, other than, say, on a forum or something like that, or maybe with your close friends if they're also wargamers. But it's different when when that conversation is going on not only at your table, but also every other table around the room, right? So, I guess my topic for this week isn't just me blabbering on like an idiot about what a good time I had, and I did have a great time. But more, have you ever been there, or are there any experiences yourself? Do you get that? So if you're in the States, you've never been to Warhammer World, do you go to conventions and enjoy that same experience? I would call it the true, like, nerd experience. And as somebody who's always been into nerd and geek culture, long before it was incredibly popular, that is to say. Long before Marvel's Cinematic Universe made it okay to be a nerd. As I was getting, just a slight, complete tangent, as I was getting off the plane today, finally coming home, like landing at my last stop, I was walking up the jetway, and there were two just, I would call them normies, okay? Sitting there, people who are clearly probably not big nerds or comic book fans or anything like that, but they were having a discussion about what Captain America's shield is made out of and how tough it is. So, and these are just two random people in the world who, are having this conversation, and they were talking about it in light of the movies and what they had seen in the movies. But I thought, what an insane world it has become that's the world we live in. So, as someone who's always been into that culture, I suppose that there's always a feeling of being somewhat of an outsider, and that you don't have conversations about what you're truly passionate about in the normal world, or amongst that that you're in a minority, as it were. And I think as wargamers, we're the niche of a niche, as we often say. And so what I think I found most appealing about Warhammer World was it's almost like a small convention that would just go on every day. And the people who can go there regularly, who can experience that, people who live in the UK and aren't too far away, I hope you all realize how lucky you are to have such a thing. Let me just say that right out of the gate. Second thing, I would love to see that sort of a thing in the U.S., though obviously the much larger geographic nature of the United States makes it complicated, because one of the advantages of Warhammer World being somewhat central-ish in England is that, it's not that incredibly far to get there from anywhere. As a point of fact, it would be shorter for me to drive to Warhammer World from anywhere in England, like England proper, that is to say, not Scotland, than it would be for me to go visit Tom. So there's a just easy comparison. So I guess, yeah, that's the topic. Have you ever been to Warhammer World? Have you had a similar experience? If you're someone who's an outsider who doesn't get to go there regularly, for those of you who go there regularly, do you still think that is the case? And what's your closest paradigm, and where you get to sort of geek out? Is it that convention atmosphere, something like that? Warhammer World is almost like a local game store on 11, right? It's so much bigger. It's more massive. The atmosphere is more complete. It is a truly unique experience. So I was very happy I got to do it. It is visiting my version of Mecca, I suppose. But I am grateful to everybody, to all my hosts, to Rem, to Steve, who we had great games, to Rob, to Ben, to everybody else who I met, to I don't know, thank you for stopping by. For other people who we met, we had some other people at other tables come by and say hi and talk to us during the game. I greatly appreciated that. So to everybody who was there, thank you very much for all your hospitality, all the friendliness, all the saying you liked the channel or anything like that. Whatever conversation we had, I want you to know that it was very, very much appreciated, and I loved every minute of it, from the time when I showed up in the morning until the time when I sadly had to leave because I needed to make a plane. So it was absolute pleasure, and I hope to go back. So there you go. That's this week's topic. Drop in the comments. Give a video response. I'd love to hear if you have been. I would love to hear your personal experiences, whether they were similar. Share some story time. That's what I'll say. And if you haven't been, and you do live in another place, in another country, it's certainly a life goal worth aiming for. Let me say that. It's worthy of that. Especially if you can go during a weekend when there's a tournament or a game or something big going on where the hall is really going to be hopping as it was yesterday for just the Warhammer TV 40K live thing. There was a very funny point. They have a television, so like the game is happening in the center of the hall. Okay, the 40K game. And during the competitive game, while the 40K game was being played, they also have a television in front of that that's showing the game that's going on 3 feet away. And there was like a crowd of people watching the game on the television. And it was humorous to me that everybody's standing there watching the game on the TV of a game that's literally being played. It's there. It's right. You could touch the guy who's playing the game. So it was just funny. Human beings and television. So there we go. That's this week's topic. I understand a little more indulgent, a little more rambly. But thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoy this. Look forward to all the responses and shared stories. And as always, we'll see you next time.